marriage map, that's a good tool for a married couple to have. And so that marriage map is a tool that a couple can utilize, because we believe that a couple that does not have a shared vision is more likely to drift without any form of direction.
Right.
And so
you're just doing life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't want to just exist, and just when we exist, we drift.
You're listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast, a place where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. Enjoy this week's episode of The Favorite Marriage.
Happy New Year 2026. Welcome back to another episode of the Favorite Marriage Podcast. We are your host, Monty and Jeannine Mora, and we are excited that you're joining us. This is the podcast where couples go to find marriage tools for their toolbox. And so we're glad you're joining us for our first episode of 2026.
Actually, our first episode in a very long time. Do you want to share why?
Yeah, a lot has happened in our family in the last several months. So we made a move from one city to another, from Fountain, Colorado, up north to a city called Monument, Colorado. We had both job transitions. I took a full-time position as a marriage and family pastor at a church up in Monument, and you took a new job at a
middle school. For those of you who might have been following our story, I've taught high school for many years and made a transition up north, and that brought me into the middle school world. It's been quite the ride.
Yeah. And we sold a house and we bought a house. So our current episode is in our new podcast studio. And so this is our first episode from our new studio here in Monument, Colorado.
Yes, so exciting things. So if you have been regular followers of The Favorite Marriage and you wondered, where did Monty and Jeannine go? They're off the grid. We tried to stay a little active on social media. So this feels good. We're excited to share with you today.
Yeah. So The Favorite Marriage, that is the name of our podcast. So we'd like to welcome all of our new listeners, our audience. Our podcast audience has grown phenomenally in 2025.
Can I share a little bit about that, Monty?
Yes.
I think that has been just a God thing for sure. We were a little nervous, kind of stepping away from recording and breaking the pattern we had. We were doing really well, and we were recording every other week, and we were growing an audience, and we just felt like, man, if we stop in the middle of our move, we weren't sure what was going to happen. And we just knew that this is a God thing. This podcast is something that is, thought up maybe in our minds, but dropped in our hearts by God. This is His thing. This is His podcast, we'd like to say. And we just put it in His hands. I mean, He already has it in His hands, but we just trusted Him. It was like, that little boy with the broken toy and gives it to dad and says, fix it. And we tried to take it back. We had to do that with our podcast and say, here, God, this is yours. You designed it. You dropped the vision in our heart. And so when we stepped away, we actually grew in numbers. And so when you shared with me just recently how much we had grown, I was like, God, this is you. You're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been a lot of legwork up front done with the podcast in this entire year. We've had a pretty good year. I mean, we've been guests on other shows. We were a guest on the Focus in the Family, crazy little thing called Marriage podcast. I think because of the platforms that God has put us on this last year, that I think that attributes to the audience growth. And just last night, we were looking at our analytics, and now the Favorite Marriage podcast is reaching an audience in 49 countries. We've always said we're global. We're a global podcast, but to know that we're almost hitting 50 countries around the world, it's pretty amazing.
It's a God thing.
It's a pretty amazing thing, and it is a God thing.
Yeah.
So,
it's simple as that. I mean, it is God's podcast.
Yeah.
And we're just tools.
Yeah, 1,000%.
1,000%.
So it's interesting. because the Favorite Marriage Podcast, the name itself, let's give a little brief background on the name itself of the podcast. So the Favorite Marriage can be kind of an enigma, and people can misinterpret it the wrong way, meaning like, well, are there other favorite marriages that you've had, or is this the favorite marriage? So it has nothing to do with how many times we've been married or options, things like that, because we've been married one time, and we are in our 30 years of marriage. And so we are each other's favorite marriage. But talk about where the word favorite, that word comes into our marriage podcast name.
Right. And I mean, you just said it. So if you break up the word favorite, it's favorite. So we like to say when someone dwells somewhere or they live somewhere, for example, if someone lives in Denver, they are a Denverite.
Yes.
So we, being believers, professing Christ as our Lord and Savior, following His word, His plan, we, according to God's word, we are favored. So if we dwell in God's favor, we are His favorites.
Favorite. And our marriage is a favorite.
And we're not the only favorites of God, right? Anybody who chooses to follow His way, His plan, and live by His word, it's scripturally tells us that we dwell in His favor.
Yeah. And you think about the scripture in Proverbs 20. Where it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor from the Lord. And so the favorite marriage is all about the favor of God dwelling upon a marriage, or resting upon a marriage as that marriage dwells in the presence of God. And
I know you're going to take them to Psalm 23, where we kind of stewed in that favorite, where I think what was episode 3?
2 or 3, yeah.
2 or 3, where we talked about the favor of God and surely His goodness will follow us.
Yeah.
And that's
all the days of our life.
Yeah, and that's part of being favored.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good that you brought up the episode 2 and 3, because those 2 episodes are our most listened to episodes on the podcast. And the title is called Who's Leading Who. So if you get a chance, for all of our new listeners and our audience, go back to episode 2. You can start episode 1, where we just introduced the favorite marriage. But episode 2 and 3, we talk about marriage through the lens of Psalm 23, and we talk about the favor of God. And so go back and take a peek at it.
Yeah.
And so that's episode 2 and 3. We have, we're recording episode 73, but our podcast in general, we have over 150 episodes, including the 5-Minute Fridays we've been doing. So there's a lot of marriage content out there for you. So if you haven't had a chance to, indulge or binge listen, you can do that on the Favorite Marriage podcast.
Watch.
And you can find us on basically any major podcast platform and our YouTube channel. And so that's also has gained a lot of growth as well. So,
well, we better get into today's episode, because it's a good one for the beginning of the year. So many people, they begin their new year with resolutions and all these different, I guess you can call them rituals, or, things that they purposely do at the beginning of the year, every year. And one of those things that we hear people doing is like naming their year, right? Giving their name a year, of course, starting new habits, all those good things. And we've done a lot of those things. But something we wanted to do today was kind of introduce something that we have done in our marriage before, and take it and, I guess, bring it up a notch, or maybe expand it is a good way to say, and put it at the front of the year. And what we're talking about is a thing called marriage maps.
Yeah. Marriage map, that's a good tool for a married couple to have. And so that marriage map is a tool that a couple can utilize, because we believe that a couple that does not have a shared vision is more likely to drift without any form of direction. Right. And so
you're just doing life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't want to just exist, and just when we exist, we drift.
Right.
And so having a shared vision together as a husband and wife is critical, especially as we're beginning a new year. So this is where we want to talk to you about this idea of having a marriage map. Now, we all know that if you're going to go somewhere, if you're moving in a direction, if you want to, like here in Monument, Colorado, there's a lot of places to hike, right? So there are these maps that you can look at on your phone and you can buy at the store, and it gives you direction on where you're going. And so having that map, that direction, that starting point, that base camp, and then working your way up the mountain, doing it together is important. Because if we don't have a map, if we just say, well, we're just going to go blindly, going to go walking into the mountains, we're going to get lost and we're going to drift from each other, and we're going somewhere, but we're not going anywhere together.
Right. And here's the scripture foundation that we are basing this off. It's a good thing to be united and on the same page. Amos 3:3 says that can two walk together unless they are agreed. And Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And we've heard that a lot when it comes to like visions of a church or a business. But a lot of times marriage vision gets pushed to the side.
It does.
And especially if you are living in a busy home with kids and you are thinking of all the different visions that everybody has, right? If you have a vision for yourself and then your spouse has a vision for themselves and then your children, they all have these goals and visions for themselves. I mean, it gets to be cluttered and messy. So this, if I can draw a diagram in your mind, a lot of times you've done this when you have sketched a sermon, right? When you begin a sermon, to begin a study about what you're going to preach, you kind of do a mind map. I've done this when teaching a lesson. So you start like with kind of like a cloud. I do a little squiggly cloud. You do a box, a circle, and you put the center of what your theme is. Well, we would encourage you for your marriage map is to put your names and put, like one flesh team. Mora, something, whatever you call yourselves, the dynamic twins, whatever. And that's your circle, but that means that's you and your spouse. And everything from there, you just start like drawing these lines out towards different events, different, goals that you might have. I mean, like something that we would have done, for this last year is buy a new house or do all the things, all the things that it took us, that's not on our marriage map. Might be on your marriage map. Hopefully it's on some of your marriage maps, I'm talking to. Yeah. But anyway, so you just begin to draw other bubbles. And here's the important piece is that that those things stem from the center of your spouse. Everything that happens, it's like you are just the center. You are the hub of everything that goes out from your home. And this is so important. Also, I think even more importantly, when you have a lot of action going on in your home with children. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're talking about like the hub and then the spokes, like I'm thinking of a wheel is what you were talking about. And so let's give them the 4 categories of what would be in that hub, right? So the 4 categories.
Yeah, and not limited to these 4. These are just starters.
Yeah, and remember, having a shared vision, your marriage map, it's not about perfection. It's really about direction, the direction you and your spouse are taking together. And so the first category that we want to talk to you about when you're thinking about your marriage map is the category of spiritual. So let's just give all 4. So 4 categories for your marriage map are spiritual, emotional, physical/relational, and financial. So those are your 4 big categories where you're going to map out your marriage for the entire year. Okay, so let's talk about the first one, which is spiritual, the spiritual piece, first category. Now, when we talk about spiritual, we're not talking about being like this super spiritual person. It's really about being, as a married couple, intentional with one another, with your relationship with God, and doing it together. So what does that look like for a married couple as they map out their marriage when it comes to their spiritual life, their relationship with God? Here's where you want to start asking questions, right, to one another, because you don't really know where you're going to go together spiritually until you start discussing that. And then you start asking important questions. So questions would be, do you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, having these categories and writing them down, if you chose to do them like on a whiteboard or a cork board, bulletin board somewhere in your house, if you don't have the space for something like that, maybe doing it digitally and sharing this document. If you have an iPad and you have an app, like a notes app that you can draw on and you guys share that together, it is really important that you intentionally do this to keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
I love the idea of having some kind of board in the house, especially if you have a lot of kids or even 2 kids. Even 1 kid these days is a lot. I mean, if you're just a busy house, it would be nice to have like a chalkboard or something like that to keep it in front of you and kind of know, because we'll get into this later, but it changes and you can erase and put things down, but we'll get into that. But just being intentional with it being visual.
Yeah. And Habakkuk says, write the vision down. So there's something valuable in writing the vision down.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So we're going to give you some questions to ask each other as a husband and wife under the spiritual category. Okay. So this is a point where you and your spouse, at some point, you might want to pause the episode or you might want to listen to it together again and really work through some of these questions. So in order to map out your marriage spiritually, some questions to ask each other are, how do we want to grow spiritually together this year?
Yep. What are some spiritual rhythms that we can realistically commit to as a couple?
So the important word is spiritual rhythms. Question 3, where do we need God's guidance the most right now? That's a good one.
That is so good. And then how can we pray for each other more intentionally? These are really good.
Yeah.
And we've walked through all of these multiple times throughout last year and all 30 years, but sometimes it's more in these areas than others.
Yeah.
I love that.
So as a couple, as they're asking these questions to one another, they're writing down their responses and they're having conversation. And then from there, that creates the first category of their marriage map. Where do we want to go together spiritually?
And then just some really quick, because we got to move on to the others. What are some of these things that they can do? Like
reading the Bible, doing a Bible reading plan together, praying together.
Finding those moments.
Finding those, like we talked about, spiritual rhythms or holy habits. So whatever those would look like.
Sometimes this can become really overwhelming to couples if they think like they initially have to start off with something like every day. That'd be great if you can do that, and we really encourage that. But if you are just creating something intentional on a weekly basis, where maybe you guys are doing a study together and you come together on Sunday nights and you discuss that together, and like, hey, what did you gather from this week's readings, so forth and so on, things like that.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about, because it goes back down to that couple must have some form of rhythm. If there's no rhythm, like we talked about earlier, you're just going to drift with no direction. So you have some sense of rhythm. Okay, number 2, the second category of mapping out your marriage for 2026 is in the category of emotional, the emotional piece. Now, this is where many couples drift quietly, because one can maybe be very expressive emotionally and others may not be expressive. Or if you get two individuals and they're not expressive at all, then they start really drifting and moving in a direction that could be very, very, very dangerous. So the emotional piece is important, because emotional distance just doesn't usually happen suddenly. We know it happens slowly, just like that ship on the water. When it's unanchored, when that wave will just begin to gently, quietly move that ship farther away from the shore. And that's what can happen inside of a marriage when there's no emotional connection and plan to grow emotionally together.
I'm so glad you said that. So real quick, when you said connection, I can't help to think about our adventures that we had this summer on the ocean, and we just had a wonderful time getting away in Florida with our family. But thinking about when we were just on the ocean and I had an inner tube and we're just laying there, and how quickly you can drift from where you want to be, especially when there's a lot of movement happening. So think of your life. If your life is more like an ocean right now and there's just waves coming in and you don't even know where the waves are coming in from, but even consistent waves and you know where they're coming from, maybe it's just a job situation and you are just always just being pushed in and pulled out. But just think about that. When you are not connected, and until we locked arms and stayed connected, we felt more secure. I really didn't care how far I drifted because I was with you. When I was
together.
alone, no, but think about the ocean, how big it is. When I was alone, I mean, anybody who's been in the ocean, you know that you can be on the shallow edge of the shore, and then quickly not find your footing, and only be like, 10 yards out, 20 yards out from the shore, and you're in danger. And so that's so important. You may be finding yourself right now that you're just chilling in a pool and it's real nice. That's different. You can get away without being as connected, but still the goal is to stay connected. And even when we were back at the house and we were laying in the pool, it was just always nice to know like we were there, and when we were drifting, we were together and staying connected. So this is the whole point of this marriage map, is staying connected.
Spiritually and emotionally. Okay, let's get to some questions
about emotionally
that you can ask your spouse together that will help you plan this marriage map category. You want to start with some of those questions?
How emotionally connected do we feel right now?
That's pretty good. What makes you feel most loved by me?
Where do you need more support or understanding this year?
And I want to start answering some of these questions. And how can we communicate better when we disagree on something? What can we get better at? That's a good question.
I feel we've gotten better at that this year. There was a lot of disagreements when transitioning from one city to another, in jobs and buying houses and all those things.
It does test you. It tests the strength of your marriage. Like they say, you want to test the strength of the marriage. You do a project together.
Right.
Buy a house together. Sell a house together.
I want to give them one example of that and how that has helped us. So a lot of times when I get overly stimulated, I guess you can say, with all the things in my life, maybe they're not connected to you, but it's just my world. I know I need to connect you. Right, going back to that connection piece. So there's been times when I've just had like some brain dumps, and I just wrote everything. I categorized my personal life, my health, my children, my job, our marriage, and I just wrote really quick bullet points. Boom, boom, boom. This is how I'm feeling about this, just to give you a glimpse of what is going on in me emotionally. And then I've shared that with you. And you've given me it's your safe place. We've talked about that before in other podcasts. You're a safe place so that I can give it to you. You've taken it and you've read it. And it helps you, because most of the time I'm pretty vocal about all the things that might be stressing me out or giving me just senses of anxiety and those things like that. And you might know them, but when I list them, I think there's been times where you've just been like, oh, like all of it, seeing it all together really lets you in to my world emotionally.
Yeah. And it gives me perspective too.
Gives you perspective. So that's an example. And I would strongly encourage for both spouses to do that, right? So that there's that open door to do that.
Yeah, that's really good for couples to do that. And it might be more easier for the wife to do that because she might be more tuned into her own emotions. Sometimes us men, we kind of find ourselves in that box.
Yeah, but that's such a
box.
Good tool, though.
But what I'm going to say is, but you have to place it a priority for your marriage and say, yes, I am going to share what I'm feeling emotionally. Like, so if I'm feeling frustrated, irritated, happy, sad, glad, mad, whatever the case may be, to verbalize that and to vocalize that to your spouse is important because they need to know like where you at. Like we can pick up on each other's vibes, but until you verbally share with me, it's like, oh, okay. So now I can connect those two dots together and that makes sense now.
Right.
And you can map that out, and that's what helps you grow healthy emotionally as a husband and wife.
Right. And like you said, it's hard for men to do that. So maybe this is something that we're asking you to grow and take steps of growth, like you have to move forward in order to grow. You can't just stay stagnant and expect to grow. You have to make movement. So maybe this is something that you can start doing to open the door for that, because most men will be like, no, I don't want to share with you because you're supposed to carry the load, and well, you're feeling this way, and there's no way that I'm going to start sharing with you because your paper is like filled front and back, girl. There's no way I'm going to give you my notebook paper.
Tilt the scale.
Like, you're just going to flip. And here's the thing, men. Your wife needs you to connect that. You doing that is not going to add to her list. It's actually going to lift the load because we need you as our husband to just open up. And when you do that, that creates security and closeness and makes the wife feel, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's got all this stuff. And quite honestly, it actually helps me to not focus so much on me. And it really turns me towards you and thinking, hey, I need to step up here and help my husband. Because the dangerous thing is for one of the spouses, it could be flipped around. You might be the husband that just has a journal full of things you're just giving your wife, and the wife is like, I'm not going to say nothing to him. I mean, it just might be, but statistically, not. Statistically, it's the husband who won't open up, who just feels like they needed to carry everything. Yeah. But I just remember we just saw a scene on one of our favorite movies, and the wife was just trying to like, talk to me, let me in. I need to know. I need to know you. And she said something so profound, and she said, I need to, like, it's not like they're not to judge. He was so afraid for her to judge him. And she said, I just want to understand you. And that is so important, to be able to understand and open up your heart and mind to your wife is, it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Third category of the marriage map.
Yeah, we better get going.
Is physical and relational. And so obviously this piece on the marriage map really focuses on your affection, your intimacy together as a husband and wife, your friendship, your fun together. So it's all tied into like the relationship. And it's not just about surviving or us getting through another year. It's really about us thriving and enjoying each other and really enjoying our relationship and really sitting in the moments and drawing closer to one another, physically, relationally, so obviously this includes not just the emotional piece, but the sexual piece, the activity piece, right? All these things of intimacy that we talk about. And so a couple questions that a husband and wife can ask each other as they're mapping out their marriage regarding this category is, how can we be more intentional about physical affection.
Yep. What would help us feel more connected in intimacy?
And what's one fun thing we want to do together this year? So that could be like a vacation, something small, something really big.
And then this, I love this one. How can we protect time for just us? Protect time. You have to fight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, other things will start filling your calendar. And before you know it, it's like, oh, date night, we were supposed to do that 7 months ago. But because you didn't prioritize it, you didn't map it out.
Yeah.
Here you are trying to figure out, man, we haven't done a date night for a long, long time, right? So you have to make time. You got to protect time for that. So your marriage deserves priority, not the leftovers. Let me say that again. Your marriage deserves priorities, not the leftovers.
Yeah, you might be listening to this podcast today, and that might just hit home right now. And I just feel like in my spirit that someone just feels like they're feeling like leftovers. And it's been years and years feeling that way, and you're just done. Our prayer for you today, this evening, is don't give up. I mean, it's not ever too late to start over. And if you have a spouse who's willing to recognize what they've done or what they haven't done, it's always worth saving. It's always worth stepping back, looking back at where you went wrong and remapping. Get back to that map and remap.
Remap it. Yeah, that's a good word right there.
Last one.
Yeah, all right, last one, financially. So the fourth category in the marriage map is the category of money. So we know that money can impact us emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically,
All of it.
all the leads, right? Money canvases a lot. It impacts so much. We did an episode a few months ago. We talked about money talks, money talks, having healthy money conversations, and we talked a lot about the money piece. And so, money is important, obviously, when it comes to marriage. So, this year in 2026, this is important for you and your spouse to sit down and talk about those money goals for your marriage. Because what happens is silence around money causes stress.
Yes, it does.
and here's the thing is you and I, we've been silent in many circumstances in our 30 years on this topic of money, and it has caused a lot of stress in our marriage. And so I brought in my money mindsets into the marriage. You brought in yours. We're both silent on them. And for years, we never really discussed it. We avoided it, basically, because we don't want to foster or bring up any of this bad stuff inside of our own life. And so having these healthy conversations, mapping out your marriage in 2026 is important. So let's talk about a couple questions there.
So what financial goal do we want to pursue together this year?
Saving, spending, all that good stuff.
What goal? Make a goal.
Where do we need more unity or transparency? Yeah, because we talked about
that could be dangerous.
Hiding money, spending.
What does stewardship look like for us right now? And stewardship in biblically, tithing, those kind of things.
Yeah. How you spending your money, you got to tell your money where to go, because if you don't, it'll just go. Number 4 question, how can we reduce financial stress in our marriage this year? These are some really good questions. This isn't really about like building wealth, but you can build wealth through doing this, but it's more about coming together in unity.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the end game, is to get wealthy, maybe for some people out there, but that's not the purpose of this podcast. It's not how to get wealthy in your marriage, but it is to become unified.
As a married couple, yeah. So we've given you a lot. We've talked about a marriage map, and we've given you 4 categories that you can map out your marriage for in 2026. And if you feel like you and your spouse need to go back and re-listen to the episode, feel free to hit the pause button as you're walking through each of the questions and write that information down. And then once you have all these answers to these questions and you've had good conversation, then you can begin to map your marriage out. And then you'll be able to have a big picture of where your marriage is going for the year.
Yes. We'd encourage you to start this marriage map and try it for a few weeks, a month or so, with just you and your spouse. And like we had mentioned before, the spokes, once you guys are getting into that and becoming in this rhythm of checking with one another and looking at, hey, how are you doing here, here, and here, and visually seeing, right? So for example, like literally on my marriage map, it would have us in the center, but then Jeannine like starting a new job. And then have like some bullet points there. Monty is seeing that. He's aware of it. He knows like, oh, she needs this, this, and this. But just knowing that already, he's able to say like, hey, I can help you out with this tomorrow. And so it's things like that, seeing them visually. And if you're doing it digitally and just intentionally looking and just being like, oh, I didn't realize she has a doctor's appointment this week. Maybe I can make dinner. Like just connecting. That's the goal of this whole marriage map, is connecting. And then once you get really good at that with your spouse, and then I would say, then add the kids. Because a lot of times there's a lot of conflict in marriage when one of the spouses, they don't even know anything about what's happening in the kids' lives. Well, I told you. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. You forgot. It's not on the calendar, things like that. And we know there's families that go through that a lot. So if you can do this with your family as well, then one of those folks is going to be like, Sally, what does she have going on? Well, she has drama practice. She's trying out for the volleyball team. Jimmy's needs to go get his driver's license. That's just a bullet point. And it just brings your whole family intentionally together. And then if you do this like on a board, a blackboard or something, then somebody can erase that. We got that, check. And then you just add it. And it just becomes a really cool thing that even your family's involved. But husband and wife, you are the center. You are the one flesh. You are the hub.
Yeah. Surrounded by God.
And then everybody just drives on the map.
Yeah.
And you are flowing and going. And sometimes there's wrecks. Sometimes there's collisions and clashes, but then you just...
Why we have insurance?
Yeah.
God, His grace.
His insurance, His grace. Hey, that's a shirt.
Yeah.
It's a T-shirt right there.
Yeah. Well, we got to put a period on this episode.
We haven't had an episode forever. We had so much to say.
So as we're mapping out the marriage, we have come to the end of this episode. Remember that no two married couples are the same.
No.
Every marriage is unique. Every marriage is special. So your marriage map is going to look quite different from our marriage map. And remember, you're not in competition with any other couple. You are doing this together in unity, having a shared vision, shared goals, dreams, resolutions, habits, whatever you want to call it. Make sure you do it together as a husband and wife. And so we're glad you're tuning in. You've tuned into this episode with us as we talked about the marriage map. And if you haven't had an opportunity to like, share, review the podcast, the episode, please do that. We love to get this information out to many more married couples, many more married couples who need to hear what we're talking about tonight. And so, I kind of fumbled my way through that, but
it's okay. We're a little rusty.
Yeah.
Thank you for your grace.
Yeah. And we are pouring that oil on this rustiness. And so, like always, thank you for listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast. And we pray that you would experience
God's favor
on your forever.